Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us here on Front Row Politics. I am Gimba Umar, and joining us to discuss a very topical issue today is Captain ALIYU Umar Retired. Captain, you've been under the radar for a while now, but I feel just so good that I'm able to bring you out just to, answer to this very vexed issue of, a coup attempt on this administration. Thank you for joining
Okay.
us.
Thank you. Good evening, Gimba. I've been under the radar, yes, but I've been in my observatory and just taking things in.
Okay, when you heard first about this attempted coup, what came to your mind?
There was a time, Gimba, way back, I think that will be 2005. I used to write for a magazine or a newspaper. It was called the Ikoyi Obalende Times. The Ikoyi Obalende Times was a weekly publication then, and I used to do a security column there. And so when I heard about the coup on Saturday, incidentally, I was in a studio when someone scribbled it and passed it up to me. I was speaking about the subject of that security column I used to write in 2005. And one of the subject matters of my column then as a columnist was provoking the unexpected. So I was actually speaking to our leaders, I was speaking to our politicians to ensure that their conduct, specifically to ensure they upheld responsible political and social conduct so they don't end up unwittingly provoking the unexpected. I had barely said this when someone jotted it down on a piece of paper and passed it to me that the Defense Intelligence Agency had just said they had foiled an attempted. So here's the thing. Much as schools are not trending anymore, much as military rule is outmoded or outvoted, let's not forget Nepal, if I'm not mistaken. Let's not forget Bangladesh. Let's not forget closer home, Mozambique, if I'm mistaken, correct me. Let's not forget our neighboring Niger, and let's not forget Burkina Faso. You see, people beings, human beings, are creatures of, and we are social in nature. We respond to all manner of stimuli, financial, political, social, cultural, you mentioned it. And where we do not want to see ourselves go back 40, 50, 60 years, it also behoves our leaders not to behave as they should or would be doing 40, 50 years back. So when I heard about the coup, I just took it with a pinch of salt. And from my observatory, I have been triangulating and doing some permutations. And it's not really looking good.
When you did your permutations, uh, Nigeria is going through a very difficult time now. The economy is really biting. This reminds me of the time past during the 60s, the 70s, when those coups take place, and then they've been so bloody and bad. Do you think that the economic situations we are prevailing on in Nigeria today triggered the reasoning of the alleged coup plotters? Do you think that triggered them to want to act as we saw in the past?
Well, if you look at it, life in Nigeria in the past 10 years has been progressively unbearable. Progressively unbearable. And when I'm talking life here, I'm not talking about the politician's life, nor am I talking about any big military chieftain's life. But I'm talking about life for a particular bracket of people who populate this country up to, last time I checked, up to 81% or 82%. And that's the youth. Some people will want to refer to them as Gen Z. You see, these people beings, as I speak to you, populate the entire strata of active Nigerian life. They are tomorrow's people. They are in the armed forces, they are in the police, they are in the civil sector. If you go to multinationals and oil companies, when they tell you able-bodied men, if you go to multinational companies and private companies, when they tell you management trainees, they're talking about youth. When you go for recruitment in the armed forces, the police, the civil defense, whatever, they say able-bodied men and women. They're not talking about me. They're not talking about pensioners. They're talking about this able-bodied young generation of youth. They are the hustlers. They are today's people. And on the trajectory of 10, 15 years, they are going to be the active people in the helm of affairs in Nigeria. So here's the thing. A lot of them are not happy. Me, I may have done the things they are doing now 20, 15 years ago, and that's true. What I tell you as we speak, a lot of them are trying to put their children in schools. A lot of them are trying to rent homes, not even build one. A lot of things are happening, whether in the armed forces, in the banking sector, anywhere. And if the economy is not smiling with them, do you think they will be happy? They won't be happy. There'll actually be a bit of resting.
But then the question is this: even if they are not happy, even if they are not happy, as you say, does it warrant staging a coup?
To start with, before I answer, does it warrant staging a coup? Let me first of all ask, what is the position of the government and the armed forces, intelligence agencies on the coup? We're getting conflicting, releases. As we speak, there is what I want to call an information vacuum. And you know what happens when you have an information vacuum? The subject and object of interest begins to lose credibility. One. Two, anything you find in that vacuum, whoever takes up that place immediately becomes a credible source. Some are saying there was, others are saying there wasn't. So let me come back to your question. You see, I'll tell you something. People, being creatures of habit and social in nature, will do what they have to do if there are no options open to them. Everyone wants to survive. Everyone wants to survive, regardless whether the means of survival is legal or illegal. Once it comes to survival and people need to survive, then they will have to do what they will to survive. That's just why I want to put it. If indeed there was a coup, something pushed those young people or those officers to do so. If there wasn't, then the positions that are being taken by the different authorities should triangulate.
Okay, if I may butt in there, my apologies. Why did this coup fail? Why do you think this coup failed?
I'll tell you why. If there was any, it was probably plotted and conceived of by three percentages actually, by officers who were too young to understand the dynamic of trying to spring one in a country like ours. The next thing why I would say it did not succeed is because the timing probably was wrong. Let me tell you why. From my website observatory, I have been triangulating, and as I told you, just watching. Now, don't forget, we had a national parade that was cancelled outright. You recall the 1st October was cancelled? You recall when we do not have a 1st October parade, we do have what you call a change of guards parade, where the commander-in-chief appreciates the guards brigade changing guards ceremonially. Do you recall? None of that happened. Now, here's the thing. Gimba, if you had a wedding and you had to cancel your wedding 2 days or thereabouts to the wedding, definitely something compelling must have made you cancel. Okay, I know you're married, so please, madam, excuse us. There's not going to be any wedding. But trust me, if you had a wedding and 48 hours, D-Day plus 48 hours, you cancel it, there will be a lot of costs. There will be a lot of invited people who will have to be what? Rescheduled. There will be a lot of people who have already, the RSVP upon the civil play part of your invitation. They will have already been ticked off there as they're attending. So imagine the things that would have had to happen where heads of government, captains of industry, my lords, spiritual and temporal, all the diplomatic community, 2 days to time, appointment, accommodations booked, embassies have already taken care of all the protocols and the itineraries. Advanced parties of heads of government and state would have arrived in Nigeria. Their security teams would have come in to clear where they are going to stay. Their protocol teams would have come in to take care of what they will be doing during that period until they leave. Ambassadors of such countries will be on their toes in expectation, and suddenly you hear it's been cancelled. The reason for cancellation has to be compelling. That is one. The next thing I want to tell you is the service chief suddenly became what? Tired. Yeah, it's a shake-up. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. I would have expected that if the service chiefs were going to be tired, there would have been some sort of ceremonial announcement. There would have been sort of, I mean, thank you for your service. But the way it was announced, it was like, it was a knee-jerk announcement. Nobody was expecting it. And then, if you are in the military and you understand where the dice has fallen with the class or cost of the present service chiefs, you will know that an entire generation has just been told they can fold their mats and start going home. It's game over. So when you triangulate these things, it begins to give some kind of credence to the coup claim. But then, as I told you, those officers were too young. They were too. They don't. Those officers are not troop commanders per se. They don't carry the gravitas, if I to have moved for a coup that would, if you use the attack surface that they would have commanded, if you want to use cybersecurity language, their attack surface was still very small and too is ignorable. So that's what I'm saying. There are too many question marks and there are too many gray areas, and the involved institutions are also not saying much. So there's what I want to call an information vacuum still hanging. And when you look about, go ahead.
Captain, this is your forte. I mean, the military is your playing ground, if I will, for lack of a better word. But when you look at the optics of this attempted coup, planned coup, whatever it is, what happened was such that the NSA, Madam Nuhu Ribadu, has been, being on the receiving side. I mean, you are the NSA. You should get first-hand information about any security breach in the country. Now, the accusations on his head now are that he has failed to progress along that line. He has failed to, you know, live up to that expectation because Mr. President gave him the NSA knowing fully well that this is a police officer and has not reached the experience of ranking generals in the military who were more qualified. That's how the narrative goes. More qualified than Nuhu Ribadu. Do you think that if Mr. President had made a different choice and had a military personnel to become NSA for him, do you think that Nuhu Ribadu's job would have been or anybody in that position? Do you think their jobs would have been threatened?
No, I don't think so. You see, that Mr. President decided to make the National Security Advisor a Nuhu Ribadu shouldn't be seen as a discount. No. You see, the NSA, as in Nuhu Ribadu, is a personification of that office. It was up to Nuhu Ribadu to have built himself a team. Look, the best general can be NSA and still fail woefully if he does not have the right heads in the National Security Agency. He is a National Security Advisor. What I'm trying to tell you is today, as we speak, intelligence is useless if the handler is not intelligent. Okay? That's one of the first things I was taught when I was being handled as an intelligence officer way back. You could have intelligence right under your nose, even smelling, and it could be useless if you are not intelligent. So where am I going? When Nuhu Ribadu, just like retired General Monguno, when Nuhu Ribadu became NSA, on a program, I said something in form of an advice for him. And what did I say? You see, as an NSA, you have to be an embodiment of three attributes. You have to be a lion, you have to be a fox, and you have to be a peacock. And I explained all three and reached out through people that I felt are close to him. In fact, as close to him as my ear is to my head. Alas, alas. But I would have advised him to do certain things which would have put him not only in charge, but it will have also put him in control. You see, NSAs are not meant to be seen. They are hardly heard, but there is a way they go about it, and no one doubts who is in charge. Now, that is where I think Malam Lu Ribadu dropped the ball. Yes, because it's one thing for you to be NSA. It's one thing for you to have competent hands with you there in the agency, and it's also another thing for you to make them understand that even as competent as they are, you have them being watched every minute of the day. It compels them to report to you all the time. So our kind of job, or my former kind of job, the intelligence community, is fraught with a lot of
Mm.
intrigues, and it's also fraught with what we call smoke and mirrors. And if you don't know your onion, then you become the fall guy. Yes, the NSA is going to have some explaining to do, but I promise you, it's not about him alone. It's also about his team of officers there. And I tell you, the officers in the national security agencies are not policemen. They are generals. They are people who know the intelligence community as well as the intelligence community knows them. But then, as I told you, intelligence could be utterly very useless if whoever is handling intelligence is not intelligent. It's a very, very key prerequisite.
I know that you're vast in this. Where does that leave Ribadu now that the service chiefs have been, have been changed? Uh, we're not really sure because I know that in a coup situation, most of the times the NSA, if that coup exposure didn't come from the NSA, it seems to suggest that the NSA may have compromised or is complicit in that kind of scenario. What do you think about that?
Well, what I straight on, the list of officers who were relieved of their offices, one officer was retained, and that's Major General Baka Udiande. He's the Chief of Defense Intelligence. The news we got came from the Defense Intelligence Agency of the Foiled Capt. The NSA has been silent, so have anything coming from his quarters. Now, there are certain things we do, and you did no telling that once such things happen, there is a likelihood that may have rendered him persona non grata. It's nothing personal, it's just professional. If something happened under your watch, then the honorable thing and the safe thing to do from the presidency or from the quarters of the presidential advisory and offices may just be to honorable tell you thank you for your service, sir. You will have to go. It's possible.
I mean, you know, this forces or compels us to, take a step back and look at. I'm sorry, am I interrupting? But
No,
let me quickly push this in. It makes us to look back at the appointment of Nuhu Ribadu as the NSA. At that point, the rumor mongers, the news that was flying around on social media was that the relationship that Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has with Madam Nuhu Ribadu was just so strong that Mr. President felt that this is someone that is like my own. He knows me into my bedroom. In Hausa, they'll say, "Ya sanne har cikin ɗaki."
that's true.
But this has not worked. This has not worked for Mr. President in the rise of this attempted coup. Did Mr. President err in putting sentiments ahead of professionalism to protect himself as in employing the NSA?
I think to a certain degree, Mr. President compensated his allies and friends with certain appointments. So here's the thing. If you were a friend of Mr. President, for example, Kimba Umar, knowing you are a media person, he may have made you his minister of communication or something like that. But you see, that I was loyal to you and that I invested in your success does not make me competent for any office you think. When I say competent, I'm not talking about suitable. You are suitable does not mean you are competent. Let me give an example Nigerians can relate to it, okay? Because it has to do with football. I know everybody follows football. A certain gentleman called Arsene Wenger. I don't recall him playing football one day. I don't. I can't. I tried. But you know what? He sat in a club and turned it to a what? A five-star club. I remember Arsene Wenger would pick people from the dustbin of football history and brush them up and polish them. And before you know that, he's giving them out for so much. That's it. That's it. That's competence. Malan Nubadu was more of a loyalist than he was of somebody that I could say was skilled in the business of intelligence. If he was really skilled in the business of intelligence, he didn't have to be a retired military officer to sit there. All he needed to do was to put the machineries in place that makes him a lion, a fox, and a peacock. I used to read one of my, you know, the founding father of the CIA, and they used to put it this way: you see, as a lion, you are feared, you are a conduit, and as a fox, you are cunning and smart, and as a peacock, you are loved by all. So you have to wear the toga selectively as time requires, and that's who an NSA is. He's never seen, he's never had, but he maintains an absent presence everywhere, even within his own men's ranks. That's how NSAs behave. They know what you are thinking even before you think about it. But then, if you exhibit any of such in deficit, then right there within the NSA, there could be moles. Okay, yes, there could be moles who will exploit you and make you look bad. So, as a leader, you will have to take responsibility for whatever the president makes of his agency as of now. Post school.
Now, let me see if this will be an appropriate one to ask you. Um, General Christopher Musa, the former CDS, uh, many think and have this notion of his contribution to national security, fighting the insurgents in the Northeast. He has had that experience. He has got, look at his profile. His profile is just full of one achievement to another achievement to the next achievement. And people feel that somebody like this, who brought the attention of this attempted coup to Mr. President, may have gotten a better treatment. What do you make of that?
First things first, Umar. You see, our kind of job is a thankless job. What do I mean by the thankless job? You really can't thank a man enough for choosing to place his life online to defend his nation. But having said that, General Musa was an infantry officer. We served together while I was in the army. I was adjutant in my unit. He was adjutant 2 Mechanized Division camp. General Musa was also, if I want to say, someone who is not new to northern Nigeria. He is from Kaduna State, and he also schooled in Sokoto State. General Musa is also somebody who was not, he was born into soldiering. His father was a soldier. So he's like me, whose father was a soldier. They are all barrack boys. So General Musa can relate with the soldiers because his father was one. He can relate with officers because he became one. He can relate with generals because he is one. And he can also relate with civilians because they attended civil schools like the one in Sokoto. So what I'm trying to say here is this. I'm not particularly surprised by the way he was treated because here home, just like they say in the Bible, a prophet is not valued in his hometown. I have seen generals who were also exemplary and they were not given the kind of treatment they required, all in the name of politics. So General Musa has done well. Not everything he did went down well, fine, but on the aggregate, if I were to say one or two things about him, I would say he did very well. He did very well. He's going home to rest now. He's going out of active service. I know he's a very smart and intelligent officer, and I wouldn't be surprised if he puts himself to some endeavor who will still profit, promote, and benefit national security. I'm waiting to hear that, but I won't be surprised. He's that kind of person. He's proactive and he's a creative person. Yes, indeed.
Interesting indeed. We'll wait to hear how that pans out at the end. But I must sincerely thank you, Captain ALIYU Umar Retired, for talking to us here on Front Row Politics, here on Control TV. The lines are not very good, but I'm sure that YouTube is doing the needful to make it as clear as possible from my end and from your end. And to everyone who has been part of this show, I want to thank you so much indeed for being a part of it and for watching. You could share and like us as quickly as you can, just so that we're able to get the perspective of a military man, retired, albeit, Captain ALIYU Umar. Thank you again.
My pleasure. Give me a blessed day ahead.